Hey, friends, and welcome back to our book club, Love and Responsibility, as we delve into the teachings of Pope St. John Paul II on relationships. And we're using, as always, Edward Sri's book, Men, Women, and the Mystery of Love. It's a great book. I hope your discussions are going well. Your time for personal prayer is very fruitful as you make practical this beautiful teaching of John Paul II. So this week we're studying chapter 9, which is on modesty. A tricky topic, but I think the title kind of helps frame it in the proper context. So the title is To Inspire Love, A Return to Modesty. So modesty isn't just about telling people what to do or what they should wear, what not to do, what they shouldn't wear. It's really about love, and it's about fostering true love, which is, as we've been discussing in previous chapters, this giving of oneself for the good of the other, this sacrificing of my life, giving my life away for the benefit of the other, which is going to result in this mutual, this return of self-gift. And anyway, this is what real love is all about. And so modesty is about fostering that and avoiding this tendency that we also have to lust or to take the other for our own selfish ends, our own sexual pleasure, etc. So modesty is a beautiful thing. It's a good thing. Now, one qualifier. Dr. Sri tends to speak about modesty in this chapter, specifically for women, right? So how can women live modesty? Obviously, it's a virtue for both men and women. But as we'll discuss, it tends to be a bigger issue for women in the way they portray themselves to men as opposed to men in the way that they physically portray themselves to women. And then lastly, so I'm a priest talking to mostly trying to talk to women about modesty. I don't typically think that's the best way to go about it. I think that this issue of modesty is best addressed amongst women and amongst men. So women talking to women, men talking to men. I'll do my best. Obviously, I have a role to play as a part of a beautiful teaching we have within the church. So yeah, I'll talk about modesty. But in general, women, if you find that you're passionate about this topic or you have something to say about it, I encourage you, speak up about it. Don't just wait for father to start talking about it from the pulpit, because he's probably not going to, right? No, if you see a situation or you know someone who has this tendency to dress immodestly, for example, maybe you should say something in a sisterly, loving way to help her or men for him to think about this in a deeper way. So anyway, just a couple qualifications. Let's get into the topic of modesty. All right, so JP2 begins by speaking about shame. And he says that shame is this tendency we have to conceal ourselves. And within the area of sexuality or sexual shame, it's this tendency we have to cover ourselves up so as to protect ourselves from being used as a sexual object by others. And so once again, shame's a good thing in this context. It's this, kind of internal drive to, I'm going to cover myself up. Right? If you were just found to be naked outside, you would try to cover yourself up. Why? Because you don't want others just to see you in terms of the physical, in terms of physical attractiveness, and then using you just to exploit their own sexual urges. No, you want to be seen as a person. And so you cover yourself up to allow others to get to know you as a person, not just as a sexual object. So this is how Edward Sri speaks about it. He says, we tend to veil the sexual values connected with particular parts of the body, right? The sexual values or the attractiveness of particular parts of our body, not because they are bad, but because they can overshadow the greater value of the person. So this is important, we don't cover ourselves up because our bodies are like evil or bad or because sex is not good. It's quite the opposite. John Paul II says, sexual shame is a natural form of self-defense for the person. It helps prevent the person from being treated as an object of enjoyment. So once again, and this is the main point of the chapter, he kind of reiterates it time and time again, shame or modesty is all about covering ourselves up, not because the body's bad, not because sex is bad, but because we're trying to prevent others from seeing us only in terms of, the physical attractiveness that we might have. Once again, isolating and absolutizing the sensual dimension of the sexual urge. We've talked a lot about that. We don't want others to do that. We want others to see us as persons so that they can love us as persons. So we're going to cover ourselves up so as to invite others into a deeper relationship. a relationship based on human dignity, not just on sexual exploitation, right? So that's the big message of the chapter. Women, if you want to know why should I dress modestly? Well, that's the reason why, because you want men to see you not just as a physically attractive object to use and abuse. No, you want them to see you as a person, a beautiful daughter of God who ought to be respected, and that there's something to respect there, right? So this is at the heart of the chapter. And so Edward Sri kind of points out, once you enter into marriage, this whole natural tendency you have to cover yourself up, it leaves. Why? Because there's now a relationship built on trust. That this person that you've committed your life to is not just interested in sexual gratification, isn't just interested in using you and your physical attractiveness. No, he loves you. She loves you. There's a commitment there. And so now there's a freedom to just be who you are in a very physical way, and there's no need to, hide anything anymore. So that's kind of interesting. All right, so from a woman's perspective, Edward Surrey brings this up. He says, and this is true, I've heard it. Women will say, well, if a guy struggles with lust, well, that's his problem. I don't need to worry about that. He shouldn't be thinking about that anyway. Okay, and it's legitimate. A man needs to take responsibility for his actions, for his thoughts, for his desires, etc., right? But Edward Sri brings up a good point. He just says, women, okay, on one level that's true, but we got to be realists. We got to live in the world, and we live in a fallen world. And so to just say, a man should be able to control himself, a man needs to take, it denies the reality of concupiscence, that we live in a fallen world, original sin had real effects, and so all of us need to take responsibility for that. We can't just throw it all on men, for example. So we need to take concupiscence seriously. And then second, Edward Sri just reminds women, he says, look, women, men struggle with this central dimension of the sexual urge in a much bigger way than you do. So women don't tend to get as absorbed into the physical quite in the same way that men do. It tends to be something men just right away, right? And so women, you need to be aware of that. And in a certain respect, you need to take responsibility for that too, as do men. Obviously, they can't blame women for this stuff. So once again, modesty is not just about preventing men from falling into lust. It's primarily about protecting women from being used as object to inspire men to respond to them with selfless love. So once again, women, why dress modestly? Because you want to be seen as a woman, a daughter of God, a real person, not just a sexual object. This is the point that Edward Sri reiterates. And he brings up the good question. It's like, women, what do you really want at the end of the day? So if you dress in a particular way to accentuate the sexual value connected with particular body parts, aka if you show the physical by not wearing enough clothes, then you're definitely going to get men's attraction. But you're going to get their lustful attraction. You're not going to get their true loving attention that sees you in a deeper level. So immodest dress will get the attention of men in the sense that it inspires them to lust, but it will not inspire men to love a woman as a person, which is women. That's what you really want. You want to be loved as a person. So to dress in an immodest way, is self-defeating. It's not gonna help men see you as a person. It's gonna help them see you as just something to be lusted after. And then the chapter ends and all right, so the wardrobe dilemma. So what should I wear? Women are, what should I wear then if I can't dress immodestly? All the culture, all the latest trends and fashions are also immodest. So what am I going to do? Well, I think on the one hand, we need to, the Catholic option is not just like the Catholic Amish option. It's kind of a joke within the Catholicism that people, and they're very good, they're seeking to be holy, but sometimes they can dress in ways that are just like repulsive and ugly. And, it's kind of like the burlap sack, dress and no makeup, no nothing, etc. Well, I don't think that's what we have to, when we're talking about modesty, that's not what modesty necessarily is. No, there can be a beautiful and an attractive and a, stylish form of modesty. There's a whole movement in this. Women, you should look it up more. I think Kristalina Everett does a lot in this area of modesty, but also fashion. And there's a beauty to modesty. It doesn't have to be kind of cold and dry and unattractive and, you know what I mean? Okay. So Edward Sri says in this question, well, what should I wear? He says, first, women, you have a basic level of intuition. I mean, we've all seen women who are definitely wearing not enough clothes, and it just feels uncomfortable. They look uncomfortable. It's like they know I'm not wearing enough clothes, and they're constantly pulling at their skirt and trying to cover up. And it's like, well, what do you. And so Edward Sri says, trust your intuition. If you feel like you're not wearing enough clothes, you probably aren't. So kind of learn from that, and then respond accordingly. Secondly, he says, seek some advice from outside counsel. You might have an older woman whose advice you trust, or maybe you have a good guy friend who could give you some feedback. Because once again, it tends to be more of an issue for men. Women are sometimes shocked when they hear what men are thinking about what they're wearing. Well, once again, we have to live in the real world, and seeking outside advice can be very helpful for women as they seek to live modestly. And then third, it's going to take some courage. You have to be bold if you're going to really live modesty in the world today. It's going to take extra effort. It's not going to be as easy as just going to the store and buying what's on the rack, because usually what's on the rack is pretty immodest. So you're going to have to do some extra homework and work, but it's totally worth it. It's totally going to pay off in the long run. Not just because there's some really beautiful clothes out there that are also very modest, but because you're going to see that others are going to begin to respond to you with more respect. Seeing you as a person, a woman who's to be treated as such, right? A real woman with human dignity. So anyway, some things to talk about from the chapter. We got to go. Regarding modesty. It's a really important topic. I just want to reiterate, women, speak to each other about what it means to be modest and how it has a direct impact on the way people see you. And it shouldn't be that way, but it's the way it is. So we have to take responsibility for ourselves and others. And obviously, men, you need to take responsibility for women and not encourage your lusts in this area of modesty and the physical dimension of the sexual urge. So God bless you guys. You're in my prayers. Have a great week, and we'll see you back next time. God bless.